Muy bien, pues este panel de justicia de género, innovaciones e impunidad
and
nos
innovation
hizo
and impunity
reflexionar y repensar los procesos, los principios, los cimientos
allowed
de
us
nuestros sistemas de
to
justicia para garantizar el acceso a la justicia a las mujeres y a las personas con identidades feminizadas. Damos las gracias a Fátima López, a Liliana Rieta, Michelle Reyes y a Rocío Villanueva por participar en este espacio. A continuación, y como última actividad del primer día de este foro, tendremos el panel Calidad de la Justicia y Responsabilidad de las Instituciones. Este panel estará moderado por Gabriela Ortiz Quintero, directora de Java, programa de USAID, integrante de Fortis Consultores y participará Enrique Bouchot, coordinador del Observatorio de Calidad en México, Evalúa, Inés Selwood, responsable de la Oficina de Gobierno Abierto del Consejo de la Magistratura de la Ciudad de Buenos Aires, en Argentina, y coordinadora de la Red Internacional de Justicia Abierta. También estará Juan José Olvera, magistrado del Poder Judicial Federal de México, e Isabel Herreguerena, codirectora de X Justicia para las Mujeres de México. Adelante, Gabriel.
Adelante, Gabriela.
The floor is yours, Gabriela. Thank you very much and good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the organizing institutions for the organization of such an important event of justice innovation. As it was presented before, this is table number 6 of this first international of the first day of this international forum. This table is justice quality and institutions responsiveness. I am Gabriela Ortiz, and I'm going to be with you throughout this panel, and I'm going to be moderating this panel. And first of all, I would like to briefly present the biographies of those who are with us at this table. We have on the one hand Enrique Buchot, as it was said. He is a consultant of public policies, governance, and institutional design and processes in security, criminal, and civil justice, looking for the strengthening of institutions as well as capacity transfer to civil servants and decision makers in Mexico and Latin America as well. With the security assistance program at USAID, he has conducted technical consultancy to the prosecution officers in the assessment and improvement of performance through the building of governance processes and institutional redesigning. With the Open Society Justice Initiative, he has built political articulation models with institutional communication strategies. Enrique studied political science and public administration at the National and the Autonomous National University of Mexico. Also with us, we have Inés Selwood, who has a bachelor's degree in social communication by the University of Buenos Aires. She has a master's degree in journalism. Right now, he works on his thesis of human rights at the Catalonia University. She has been working as a communications specialist for public management, and she is the head of Open Governance Unit of the City of Buenos Aires, where she developed Jus Bides, which is the open government starting from 2020. She is coordinating the international network of open justice. She was an advisor at the Agency for Access to Public Information since 2017 all the way up to 2019. In 2010, she helped creating the Office for Access to Public Information, and then she was the head thereof, among many other things. And well, she has a broad experience both in journalism and international organizations. And finally, Isabel Eregorena. She is with us this afternoon, and she has a bachelor's degree by the Autonomous Institute of Mexico. She has a master's degree in international law with a specialization on human rights of the Washington College of Law of the American University, and she has a PhD in social anthropology by the Ibero-American University. She is the joint director of Justice for Women to promote access to justice for women. Before, within the same organization, she was the coordinator of public policies. Additionally, she has worked at other public administration institutions, such as the National Institute of Access to Public Information, the National Commission of Human Rights, and the Permanent Mission of Mexico of the United Nations. Likewise, she has held both positions in several institutions in several fields, and she is professor of international law and human rights at La Salle University and Anáhuac University. And also we have Juan Jose Olvera. He has a bachelor's degree by the Autonomous University of Quito. He has a master's degree in criminal justice by the Ibero-American University and a specialization in reasoning by the Alicante University in Spain. She is a judge of the federal judiciary, and he has been a real leader in the implementation and the reform process of the adversarial system, mixed and traditional system, and its transition to the adversarial system. As you can see, we have a very diverse panel with very diverse careers and experiences, and I think that this is going to enrich discussion today a lot about justice, equality, and institutions responsiveness. So to open our discussion, I will just tell you about what we'll be discussing during this table. We will be talking about tools, mechanisms, and technologies recommended by our panelists to facilitate a higher response capacity for institutions. And other further questions we will be making to our panelists, and we hope that they will share their reflections with us throughout their presentations as to how to measure justice quality, how to measure progress in justice quality, and what conditions we have to comply with to favor a greater and a more accurate response by public institutions responsible for justice services, and what the hurdles for these have been. I will just conclude here, and I'm going to give the floor now to our panelists. If there is something that has not moved at the same pace, is the logic of the public policy cycle with the planning that is made for public administration and justice administration. It seems that these dialogues are kind of separate when we speak about accountability, assessment, quality measurement, and so on, as assessing processes. Sometimes it seems that these are very far away from what is happening in justice administration. And of course, in the last years, we have seen many endeavors to make progress in this regard. With no further ado, I will ask Juan Jose to use the floor that I once again greet and welcome. He will have 10 minutes for his presentation, just like the other panelists. So I respect, so I will ask you to send your questions for them for one Q&A around. The floor is yours, Juan Jose. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Gabriela. Thank you, all of you with whom I have the pleasure to share this reflection space through this forum that Mexico Blue is leading. I greet everyone who is following us on social media. My presentation in this space will be around the creation of justice quality indicators as a need that cannot be put off. My contributions will be made in this sense. I will start by saying that traditionally it has been said that justice is a guaranteed or its quality, and this first statement because of the minimum jurisdiction requirements, impartiality, due process, and appealing. Those of us who work in public service, when we comply with these process requirements, we can guarantee the quality of the product, which is a sentence. That's the way we have assumed this historically. And a century ago, this premise seemed to be correct because justice was being made reasonably, and because magistrates, we have a limited intervention. So we were solving public or private criminal or civil disputes, but with specific contours with marginal relevance in society. However, towards 1950, with the welfare state, and then with the democratic state and the rule of law, courts are not only applying, enforcing current laws. However, and especially the constitutional jurisdiction, will have been acknowledged the powers to make law and the capacity to elaborate and even implement public policies. I think that in these conditions, the 21st century's justice is not just a matter of rule of law, but there is a power, an institutionalizing power, because it can create institutions. And in this way, because of the extension of the magistrate's powers, as Fix-Fierro said, a paradoxical process is created for the strengthening and for concomitant strengthening and awakening in such a way that it has become a protagonist. And in this way, it is responsible concomitantly of the jurisdictional processes rigor. And then there is an engagement as well by the criteria, conflicting criteria that regulate the things judged, and even for the most accepted legal concepts such as freedom. In these times of uncontrolled insecurity, it's a common thought that the judicial institutions that enforce detention laws create impunity. Just to give you one of many examples, that the magistrate is going to apply the rule of law rules and is going to assume the cost of considering the way in which they are contributing to impunity by applying the same rules. So that's a reality. So there is awareness raising around this. Yes, and I think that both the operators and the institutions governing the justice decisions have become aware of the relevance of this protagonist position in the building of the rule of law every day. And it seems as well that this is not considered into the dimension that we have to assume things, or at least that awareness raising has not been reflected in the necessary actions to guarantee that justice is of quality, which is the most important thing. We have, well, become aware is useless if we do not have the necessary actions to build quality justice. For several decades now, we have been insisting on this topic. We have written a lot about this, and we have debated about this a lot. And in the legislative at the legislative level in Mexico, we have the foundations for this aim, for instance, transparency, effective justice through the mandate for magistrates, and to privilege the solution of the context instead of just a procedural, instead of the application of mere procedural laws, and finally, publicity of adversarial system. These are values contributing, of course, to generating and creating a quality justice setting. But the fact that justice is transparent helps identifying the virtues and defects of justice. But if this does not have any necessary measures at this for these purposes, then we can see the effects, but not the solutions. If we do not create the mechanisms implementing rules, awarding virtues and punishing defects, this scenario is even more adverse, because today we know clearly the quality of justice, but the necessary measures to improve it are not being implemented. It's the product of a prejudice to assume the quality of processes and the fact that these aren't applicable to justice like for any other processes. And this is an idea that has been the main source of setbacks in the incorporation of the values of quality production. Without a doubt, the judicial work and our performance as magistrates is handicraft, and each court has its own components, which makes it unique, but the generic and basic concepts are applicable to all of them. And I mean, the production means the principles. And I will just mention some of these that will allow me to materialize the idea that I want to develop here. Number one, the justice decision offers a product to a user. Either this is a service and or this service is a public, well, it's generically it remains a product. Number two, justice quality must be measured in relation to the product and not the process. The user does not care about the process, but the result. A quality process can lead to a quality product, but it cannot guarantee it. Justice users will not see his right satisfied if even if a process has been followed exactly, if in the end the problem is not fully solved. Today, for the federal justice in Mexico, we have, and we think that an entity works well if it solves the same amount of lawsuits that it is presented. If we have more than the ones it has the capacity to solve, it is performing bad because it is not solving the same amount. But if we think that it's working